Hey Kurt, how
Um,
you doing? You're on mute?
I'm still fine, thank you. I
Good.
said I'm jealous of your fancy backgrounds.
No, yours is so much better. It's real, it's alive, and it's tweeting away there.
There you go. Oh, is the birds out again today?
yeah, we can hear them.
Wow, your hearing is
It's
way better
lovely.
than mine, and I'm here.
Yeah. It, it's actually not a very common thing to have a lot of birds in Florida. It's when I was there,
Yeah,
it was like, oh my gosh, no birds. Um, of course, on the Panhandle, there seemed to be a lot more birds. And then when I come back to South Africa, the number of birds here is just like it's crazy compared to there. Well, I
yeah.
suppose it's where we are as well.
Yeah, well, I happen to
Can
have this
see
one
them.
bush with a couple of songbirds, so they make up for a variety of different birds, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but the condo that I lived in, the first however many years, what was it? I guess 4 years. It had a huge tree outside that went up past my fifth floor level, and there were many, many birds that would nest in it, and of course breed in it in the springtime. And then we had hurricane, I think it was Wilma, that came by, and the tree just fell over. A great oak, and I lost
Oh,
all the birds outside my window. There was such a joy to have them out there. So, and then they're few and far between, unfortunately, down here. Not like the flocks that I lived with up in New York and New Jersey for so many years.
yeah. Yeah, a lot of those are migratory birds, and it's like really interesting. There's little hummingbird is notorious that it flies all the way down the continent, but then it gets to the edge of the Gulf of Mexico and it sucks all its nectar and then it flies. And hopefully the wind doesn't change and fly and go against it because then it just runs out of energy, doesn't make it. So
That
interesting.
sounds like a metaphor for human beings too.
Yeah, having faith in the future, but not being
Uh,
stupid.
yeah, and running out of energy before it's time. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant.
some of us. So yeah, let me know if the birds bother you. I'll turn the mic off and on, as I need. But
No, it
oddly
sounds
enough,
good. Carry on. Oddly enough.
good.
All right. So let's begin. Help Save Our World Speak 74. The Senses and Sensing. Hello and welcome to our 74th Help Save Our World Speak online speakers meeting, where we are changing the conversation to change our world. I'm Dennis Moore, your host for today's 1-hour meeting. I'm here to guide you on your life and world transforming journey with this conversation based on my book, Beyond the Age of Ignorance, The Quest for the Truth, Change, and Transformation. Empowering you to change your life and to help save our world through the process is the underlying purpose of this book and these meetings. Let's start with introductions. Kurt?
I want to find an easier on and off button for the mic. Hi, I'm Kurt. I'm living in Hollywood, Florida these days, and I'm here to participate in the Help Save Our World conversations because I think it's one of the top conversations that we all get to have regularly, just to keep what we're doing and our impact on the world top of mind, so that we can give it to future generations in a way that is supportive and continues to be beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you, Kurt. Alex?
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm based here in South Africa, and my motivation for the last 2 weeks has basically been to try and reduce my footprint on planet Earth, and and bring about change. Bring about a feminine energy for growth, for love, for connecting at a fundamental level.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alex. That feminine energy is such an important factor. Brendan?
Hi, I'm Brendan. I'm from South Africa. I'm part of this movement in order to help prevent any further damage in the future as well as the present, and to help people change their hearts and minds about the world around them.
Excellent. Thank you, Brendan. Well, I was actually talking about that. There was some guys I was speaking to the other day, and they're like, "Oh, there are too many people on this planet, and let's just get rid of them, and everything will be all right." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you just really need to go to the beginning of our meetings, and I'll explain the whole thing to you." Anyway, so let me start by introducing the topic for today. The idea is sensing. We are energy beings, and we live in this dynamic. So in other words, moving and changing, vibrating energy, flowing, patterning. In other words, the formation of patterns, like from atoms all the way up to organs, to plants, to animals, patterning information universe. Everything in our universe is composed out of organic, vibrating combinations of patterns of information. That is what composes everything. So you think of an atom, it's a pattern of vibrating energy in waves of vibrating energy, or circulating, or moving, flying through space. Everything from the most basic thing we can imagine, and that's the subatomic level, or even just purely vibrating space, oscillating space. It's basically composed of patterns of information. Now, I'm going to try and just read through this and see if you get it, but otherwise I will. Okay, just before I do that, I just want you to look around you, okay, and see anything around you, and imagine that there are these tiny little vibrations of space flying from the tree, from a leaf, from the atom in that leaf, outward at 90 degrees towards you. And that photon of energy, that amount of, or that quantum of energy, of the single vibration that actually hits your eye, you're able to see it. And now imagine that's one vibration traveling at the speed of light, but there are many, many that follow it, coming towards you. All right. And then imagine all of the light that entered the tree, or whatever it is that you're looking at, and all of the light that's coming back out at you as a pattern of energy that you perceive as a tree. Okay, so look around you and imagine all of the information, the patterns of information that you are receiving from everything around you, and they're all flowing through space. Isn't that awesome? Okay, but now they're crossing over one another as they fly in different directions. And as you move in and look at it at a slightly different angle, you're receiving a slightly different pattern of energy that left at that angle from whatever it is you're looking at. I was, just after Shannon passed away, I flew to Oregon, and met some wonderful people up there, like really, really sort of amazing human beings compared to the East Coast of America. And these, on the way back, I mean, so it was like this soulful experience that I had there. But on the way back, I was sitting in the window seat and I was looking out of my window down to the ground. And as there were clouds or bush or different surface elements, the moon was actually traveling along on the water down below me, right next to us in the plane, traveling along with us. And it would be beautiful. I mean, it must have been dead still that day. And this beautiful image of this wonderful moon would be like visible as it went over the water, and then it would disappear for a little bit of darkness, and then it would appear again. But it was traveling with me through space. Like I'm flying at like 350 miles an hour or whatever, this incredible speed flying along. And the moon's image, seemingly not changing, was traveling along with me. Now, to me, at that moment, I was like absolutely fascinated, but I couldn't really explain what it is. I think until today, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was the most incredible experience, and I couldn't explain it. But basically, the moonlight is shining out all of this information. But at my particular position in space, I was looking down at the moon, seeing the moon, and that information was coming from the moon down and shining up at me. And of course, that was there because the sun was shining on the moon. And of course, so this perfect image and pattern of information, I was receiving it at no matter at what angle I was in space. So can you imagine? There's this information, the moon information, radiating out into space in all different directions. But that particular pattern that I could see at that moment, or in that part of the journey, where I went over the Everglades, I went over, a whole lot of expanses of water. It was absolutely magnificent. So now, can you imagine the amount of information, vibrating information of light and heat and sound and all sorts of information that's traveling in all different directions all around us. And we don't actually see it as being that. We think we see a tree and we think we see a car and we think we see video, but it's not. We're actually seeing the information that left those beings. I mean, I can see you, each one of you, and that light, sunlight on your face, say, Kurt, because you're the only one who's outside, is like entering your skin and then radiating out, sending out this message of information that is you. I just, to me, that's like, whoa. And okay, so we're sensing patterns of energy flowing outwards from those beings, and you are intercepting them as they flow into and become one with you at a subatomic level. Then within you, your very complex patterns of energy are changing, and that incoming energy into patterns of energy and form of your Venergy being and radiating that outwards for other Venergy beings, other energy beings, vibrating energy beings to receive. All vibrating energy flows through the connected electromagnetic field or fabric or medium or ocean of space in many different directions, all composing and creating our giving and receiving, living, organic, conscious universe. So our universe is so much more than just that, but just that is like so much, it's like incredible to me. The creative love, balance, and harmony of combined flows is the creative feminine energy force of the universe. That's the creative force that everything is created out of. Then on the extreme other end is the destructive, masculine, let's kill everyone on the planet and that's the solution. No. Creating through the combinations of synchronistic and relative motions, vibrating patterns of flows of energy that form and compose whole realities, nature, and the physical expressions of energy of the universe within it. And that's everything. It's from stars to planets to galaxies to plants and animals and trees and you and me. All of those physical expressions are composed out of this creative love, balance, and harmony process of that feminine energy. To me, that's absolutely magical. And when I explain the concepts of love in later books and all that, you'll get it. You're like, oh my gosh, now I see it. There are electromagnetic patterns of energy, information flowing all around you in all different directions, which if you focus on, you can see, recognize, interpret, and perceive as similar to other named patterns of energy. Your perception is relative to your totality of your learned culture and language and extent of your natural wisdom and enlightenment. So your perspective, how you are able to perceive this energy universe and understand it and the context that you see it in is really, really important for you to interpret what it is. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Does anyone want to comment on that? Alex, you can put your side on. You want to comment?
No, Kurt wants to go ahead.
Kurt?
I was just checking to see where my mic was.
Oh.
Yeah, sure. There's quite a bit in there, Dennis, obviously, that we can talk about, but that there is this constant projection of energy from everything around us, and what we see is empty space is a pretty interesting aspect of that concept. So we're maybe in this particular physical body with the machinery we have in it to be able to process the data coming in through our senses, we've somehow either been able to or have lost the ability to see the space between. And obviously there's a lot of information going on in there. So I think one of the beauties of human beings, and I'll make it a positive here, is that we are able to squelch the endless amount of information coming in and just process certain amounts that allow us to function in this 3D world. And what we do forget is that there's just such a phenomenal amount of processes that go on in order for us to see, touch, feel. And as you mentioned before, as we're looking at each other through Zoom, imagine the many technological steps and pieces of equipment we've had to jump through, or the signals had to jump through in order to then be projected out of the phone or the computer screen, and then through our system of reception again. So in many ways, technology is making an attempt to reconstruct what the human body can do. At the same time, it's able, through the use of instruments, to sense things that we can't, at least at this point. So again, as we look at what is our experience of life, it is a totality of waves, of frequencies that pass through us and that we pass out. So when we talk about why are we here and what are we doing, there's always that to consider. Is that we're living in a frequency universe, as far as we can tell, and we get to remember that when we start to make decisions about how we want to proceed with life, with relationships, with the use of resources, etc. So I'll leave it there, but very stimulating concept there, Dennis.
Thank you. That's awesome. That was really great. Alex?
I just wanted to broaden on Kurt's
Alex, you're
words
very
there.
quiet. There you go.
Okay, hold on. Let me just do this. Is that better?
A little bit better, a little bit louder if possible.
Okay, sure thing. Okay, so I just wanted to broaden on Kurt's words there of processing information through our senses. I mean, we've basically only really touched on one sense here, how we perceive it through our line of sight or voice through communication. I mean, processing that information is a form of communication. It's connecting. If I'm sitting at the base of a tree and I'm seated in the humus of the tree, the leaves that have fallen, I can feel the vibrational energy of the warmth and possibly even the creatures and the life force beneath the surface of those leaves. I can press my hands into the soil and feel the texture and the warmth and the moisture of that soil in my hands and grab it tightly and express its energy through my skin, through the way I feel. You know, I can hear the rivers and the waters of the nearby river and feel the energy and the flow as it plummets down the rocks and over the sandbanks into the waterfalls and down the waterfalls, and just creating the splashing, lovely, sensual, loving sound that I perceive through my ears, and the coolness that radiates off that water through the trees to me, that I can feel on my skin, against my skin. I can communicate with the tree at whose base I'm sitting at, but feeling its energy rise through me and giving my energy to it. You know, it's more than just perceiving through the mind's eye. It's a feel, it's a sense, it's a love, it's a connection, it's communication.
I love that. Just that concept of when I'm in the bush, I'm home. When I'm in the ocean, I'm within the womb of Mother Nature. It's just like this incredible connection and this love that is just so amazing within nature. Brendan?
No, I think Alex pretty much covered it all there.
That's
That
awesome.
was like just the fact that she also said that it's a different type of sense other than just sight is fantastic, because that's what I was thinking as well when Kurt was saying that we interpret, for example, this meeting, right, and we say words and then it gets processed through the system and then comes out and goes into our body's receptor systems, and therefore can get, sorry, I'm just quoting exactly what Kurt said now, so you all heard him. But yeah, so it's a very interesting concept in terms of there's more to it than just sight and touch and hearing.
Yeah, we're going to get more into the depth of what senses are and what senses we really have and what senses we've been led to believe we have, and a whole lot of things about senses. So that's coming. You guys always preempt me. It's like, no, wait for me. I'm trying to catch up.
You know, Dennis, you're right. I was about to ask or add on to what Alex
No,
had said.
carry on.
Just about the concept of awareness came in. So when she was describing sitting under a tree and feeling the humus and all of that, it just reminded me that and I think I mentioned it before, that we limit our attention or the data from our senses to the point where our attention wants to go or what we want to focus on. So there is a certain amount of intention in receiving the data. And now I'm assuming right now that the tree behind me, the grass on the ground, is sending the signals out, even though I don't see it at this point. You guys can actually see it in some fashion, right? But what I'm focused on is a small screen in front of me and then a larger area around it that's kind of out of focus. And as Alex was describing the experience of sitting under the tree, it just reminded me how so many of us, and I think it's one of the reasons why we're in the situation we are in the world, do not pay attention to that data, that we're distracted by so many other things, getting from here to there, accomplishing a task, something like that, in much of the civilization, I say this as a generalization, we've lost touch and sight with what nature is about. So getting back to helping save our world, as I'm sure you're going to get to, has to do with experiencing what is rather than the distractions that also are. And I think we just so lost that connection. And that's why we're kind of working in this realm of, I don't know where I'm at or what world or life is like. So as we get into it, I'm sure we'll discuss it more, but I just felt that concept of attention and the choosing of which senses to use at any particular time will become important for us to talk about.
Yeah, I just want to bring up, like, I've been walking Barney a lot lately. He's our little puppy dog, and he absolutely loves it. And he's been teaching me lessons, like when we go on a slow walk, he will stop and he will smell every single thing on the way. But I have to change my approach and listen to him every time he tugs on the lead. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to stop and I'm going to, mark this as my territory and everything, but I want to smell everything. I've got to smell every little detail. And what he's doing there to me is slowing me down. Then there's some days when we're going to go for a short walk or a short little run, like what I did on Friday with him. And then there's no time for that. We have to go, But then there's other times when it's not like a walk-run situation. So he has his time when he's like smelling everything and we're taking our time. And I have to change my mindset to step into where he's at. And then I say, okay, now no more peeing on the next 10 lampposts. We're going to jog for the next 10 lampposts. And then we run. And he runs along with me. But then he's like, okay, no. Time to stop and smell. So it's like walk and see more. It's a common saying. It's just, but really walk and stop, like Alex does. We go on a long walk through the bush, and she's like, oh, there's a buck, and oh, there's this and this, and it's like I would have walked straight past him. So, and Brendan, I just want to bring up a point. Never worry about what anyone else says. You say what you want to say, even if you repeat supposedly exactly what somebody else has just said. That's irrelevant because you're saying it with your voice in your words, and it's different. All right. So trust yourself and just do it. All right. All right. So when you look at a tree, you do not see the tree. The tree is not hitting on your eyes, your retina, and entering your brain. You only see the patterns of information of energy that left the tree and is hitting your retina and then being electrically transmitted into your brain. And then it's all sorts of chemicals and so on, and electrical activities between your synapses and so on, which you perceive as recognizable as a recognizable pattern, because you're just looking at one tree, of information that you've learned to call a tree. Then you say, tree, recognizing it. But what you're doing is you're creating another pattern of sound energy as waves by speaking. What you're doing is you're sending out vibrating patterns of energy out into the air around you, and you're compressing and rarefying the air patterns into sound waves for the other person's eardrums to move back and forth, which is connected to the hammer and the sickle, and then it creates electrical impulses in your brain, and it goes through the whole process. And you then hear the sounds. And of course, yeah, we add in extra processes because I'm saying it's going through my new fancy new microphone, and it's going through the processes, and then it's going onto the internet, and it's going across through whatever. But those are all electrical signals. It's just information. And then on the other side, you have your speakers or your earphones, and then it's making your eardrums vibrate back and forth, and you are perceiving the patterns, the whole like word patterns, because I'm saying a lot of things, and I'm saying sentences which are patterns of information, and then you're interpreting and understanding. It's absolutely fascinating to me. By transmitting and receiving recognizable patterns of information, we give and receive energy patterns through all of our senses. So when you become aware, like truly aware and consciously connected of energy beings, you can choose to be skillful, active creators of a better energy world and universe. There's just like Rohn's reaching this age where he's like meeting goals and so on. And I think this is like one of the most magical times. I can remember my first girlfriend that I held her hand was Rosemary. And just holding her hand, just the electrical energy of holding hands was the most amazing experience I think I've experienced in my life at that moment. It was just absolutely magical, just holding hands and walking along the beach. There's a beauty about the first time. You really sort of like, but I think that's what we need to do. It's like we need to rediscover that first time in everything around us. That's where the beauty lies.
I think it's more than just the first time or recreating the first time. It's being present. It's really taking a moment to smell, to look, to notice. I mean, and don't just be, oh, I've got a computer screen in front of me. Okay, this is what information I'm getting. I'm sitting on a chair. I've got my feet up on the rests. I can feel the hardness of the rests under my feet. It hurts, and I've got the soft little cushion that's almost warm, touching the side of my foot. It's fluffy and it's connecting with me. I need to feel more. I can experience more, and then allowing myself to be present in the moment. Closing my eyes and saying, okay, what exactly do I feel? What do I hear? I can hear birds chirping in my ears. I can feel like the coolness on my skin from the winter's day that we're currently experiencing. And I can feel the clothes on my skin. I can feel my hair tickling my neck. Being present and being aware and just allowing yourself that moment to be able to smell, feel, hear, look, and be in the moment.
Yeah. But then, of course, as Kurt was saying, sorry, Kurt, it's your turn.
No, make your comment. I can hold.
Yeah, it was our problem is that we have such limited capacity. Everyone says, we live in this limitless universe and we have no limitations. And that's not true. It's really like that. I can remember studying psychology many years ago. It's like this bottleneck, you have this huge volume of information coming in, and only this much can get through the bottleneck into your consciousness. So being conscious of as much as you can around you and selectively paying attention. There's no such thing as absolute multitasking, because we literally have this limited factor that is we can pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. But how long we pay attention and become cognizant and understand and perceive, these are factors that are important. But I think our state of consciousness, how we are feeling, how, if we're feeling loving and kind and warm and whatever, and connected, then how we perceive that which comes in is altered. It becomes magnificent. It becomes beautiful. It becomes, and of course, the words we use to express it. Anyway, Kurt.
Yeah, I was reminded as Alex was speaking of the allegory of Plato's cave. I'm throwing out as if you guys know it, but basically there were people living inside a cave, and the only thing that they experienced in the darkness of the cave were shadows against the wall, I guess, of people passing by or things happening. So all they knew about reality were shadows. And then one day, again, this is an allegory, they were let out of the cave and started to experience the world as it is, right? And with light and everything else, and they could suddenly see things differently than they could before. So the bottleneck that they had, this was imposed, of course, but the bottleneck of not having enough information to having, all information, had them be present to the experience of, wow, tree and apple and colors, everything else. And it's kind of similar, though, to the allegory that we're living in right now, where we have all of this available, yet we squelch it down into a small amount to pay attention to. And especially as it goes with our awareness and our ability to access the full use of our senses and the additional senses, which we may get into at some point. So we're actually in a similar bottleneck as they were in the cave, in that we're not experiencing the fullness of experience because we have some kind of, again, squelching or limitations put on our ability to access and process. And again, as we're talking about help save our world concepts, it's the same thing where we're doing just with thoughts and concepts. So many of us walk around with a limited amount of concepts that we're willing to work with, when there's so many others that we could experience if we're willing to get off of being fixed in our comfort of our cave, and willing to go out and expand more and more into what can I do as a human being on this planet, at least. Maybe that's just a concept we get to work on as well, in order to fully experience what's going on, instead of being very competent in a couple of areas that keep us from experiencing the fullness of life and the experience, which I guess is what life is, isn't it? It's experience.
Wow. That just brings so many like ideas flashing through as you're bringing up the concept like islanders on many of these ancient sort of indigenous islands where they had no concept of ships coming over the oceans or whatever. And they literally were supposedly, it's written in studies, that these people could not see or comprehend a ship because they'd never seen such a thing before. So yeah, that's one concept. But this book is called Beyond the Age of Ignorance. Not that people are stupid, but they tend to ignore. All right. So it's really this age of enlightenment that we're leading towards, an age of awakening, of rediscovering who and what we are. It's and leading to that sort of age of wisdom, of enlightenment, and our paradigm is it's like the biggest factor that limits the way we perceive the world and how we live in it. It's like, oh, you've got to get a job, and you've got to go to school, you've got to get a job, and you've got to and you get to the end of your life, and it's like, I've got a gold watch, and I retired and I died, and it's like, what? What was this all for? What did I do? Was I living? You know? So anyway, so
I got cable TV though.
oh yeah. So I could be indoctrinated even more.
Uh,
And I learned what they wanted me to learn. Anyway. So this might be a little bit repetitive, but I'm going to try. Consciousness and connectedness. Sorry, Brendan, do you have any comment?
No, nothing from my side.
All right. So we are Venergy beings in a Venergy world. So we are these like vibrating energy beings in this vibrating energy world, in this vibrating energy universe. How we sense and interpret all that we are connected to is crucial to our understanding of everything, our quality of life, and of course, to our survival. Think of everything as radiating energy outwards with the effects of an expanding ball, like ripples in a pond. That Venergy can also be seen as information with the effects of traveling in straight lines, but also as combined patterns of information. Sorry?
I'm sorry, somebody's speaking outside here.
But also as combined patterns of information, just like you perceive starlight as precise information that has traveled an immense distance through space. No matter where you move within the line of sight of that star, if there's nothing that blocks you, you can still see it. Its light travels outwards in all directions into the universe, but with the effect of precise information traveling in straight lines, but also as patterns of information. But the further you get away from a star, I mean, you can imagine the sun is like close and there's a lot of light in, or like coming in everywhere. But then as that star gets further and further, and the expanse to which that light has been spreading out into space over these immense distances, all you can see is a twinkling little star of information, just twinkling information to you. And I just, to me, that's like, yay. All right. So light travels out in all different directions into the universe. Other Venergy beings are also receiving this information about sort of these Venergy patterns, first processed by its atoms and then radiated outwards in that Venergy beings' patterns of energy. We live in this connected, electromagnetic, vibrating information, giving and receiving conscious universe, because consciousness is such a big factor. I perceive like humans as conscious, and I perceive ants and trees and the whole planetary system as a consciousness, because there is this relationship patterns, this magnetism, this gravity, and this creative forces, and there's so much more. And then, of course, we know that people who have passed on still are, to me, from my knowledge and experience, are very real conscious energy beings that still continue to exist, and we can communicate with. That's I think we've dealt with that already so far. So sensing, we perceive our world through our senses, and all of our senses are energy senses, sensing the changes and the patterns. I was raised to believe in Aristotle's 5 senses, like vision, hearing, touch, taste, smell. And then, like, for the like really out there, we would study a little bit of Hinduism, and there was a 6th intuitive sense, and like the 6th sense, and that was like, whoa, that was pretty out there in the Western world, because of course we were more Christian than Hindu. Now I propose we are connected electromagnetically with our cells, our atoms, and the subatomic realm to the information universe. We are constantly connecting and sensing patterns of change, because really we live in a changing world, and we are sensing those changes, and the patterns of changes, the that everything about us is processing and sensing patterns and upon patterns of information. It has been proven that the human eye can perceive one quantum or one photon of energy of light. So our sensitivity through our eyes is phenomenal. But of course, many other animals and so on all have different sensory capacities. So that's something I'll get to after the human senses. During my research, I came across this article, and I did post it in the Help Save Our World group, but I'm just going to just touch on a few things. But basically, it's an article from the University of Glasgow, the Department of Psychology, and the author was Steve Draper. He basically says that we have the defensible answers of how many senses we have. We have like 3, the number of physical types of stimuli, light, chemicals, taste, and internal senses, mechanical, hearing, touch, and so on. And he says vision, 9 vision, hearing, touch, taste, smell, pain, mechanoreceptors, temperature, interoceptors, blood pressure, bladder stretch. And then there's like a number, on a table here, he's got 21 other receptors, pain, cutaneous, somatic, visceral, and then mechanoreceptors, balance, rotational acceleration, linear acceleration, proprioception, joint position, kinesis, muscle stretch through tendons and organs, then muscle spindles and so on. Then he says, okay, temperature, hot and cold, and then blood pressure and arterial blood pressure, central venous blood pressure, head blood pressure, blood oxygen content, cerebrospinal fluid, pH, plasma, osmotic pressure, artery, vein, blood glucose. That one's often happens, I start to like vibrate when I have been make the mistake of having sugar, and then my blood sugar level rises and falls, and I can feel myself going to faint. So lung inflation, bladder stretch, a full stomach. We have so many more sensory capabilities than we possibly imagine. And then, of course, the sense of smell is olfaction. Of the chemical senses of external stimuli, it currently appears that there may be 4 different sets of senses. So taste buds on the tongue detect 5 different flavors, but also at least 2 types of receptor elsewhere in the mouth for chili, hot, and the opposite, creamy, cool, soothing. Most perceived taste comes from olfaction, or the exhalation or exhaled air from the oral cavity. Olfaction or olfactory bulb and nerve analyzing airborne particles inhaled by the nose. But there are some women with excellent olfaction with no olfactory bulb whatsoever. Then trigeminal airborne molecules are often also detected by our sensors in the whole nose and oral cavity, transmitted by this trigeminal nerve, perceived as hot or cold, but combined as part of our odor percept. And then there is some but insufficient evidence, both behavioral, anatomical, and from brain scans, that humans have a further set of detectors which in animals respond to pheromones. Now, pheromones are very, very powerful and have an effect on us, but of course, is not laying claim to that. So whose senses we are unconscious of, but which do affect us. We are largely unconscious of some other things, such as the shortage of oxygen in the air, which undoubtedly have a huge effect on us. So this goes on and on. Okay, then it's like, he says bloodhounds versus humans, the sensitivity of odors, 10 million to 1. So now you know why Barney is like really, really smelling stuff while I'm like oblivious. Human sensitivity to strong odor can be 9 parts per trillion. So in other words, very, very, very little.
Okay, so then why does he stick his nose right in it? Why, you know, can't he just like smell it up the road already?
I'm sure he does. I mean, some areas he like, when we're like, I don't know, maybe 20 meters away, he's like, okay, that's what I want to go and smell. And you can see him. It's like he's hunting it down, dun, 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 and then his nose goes right into it. I think it's the nuances that he's like picking up. It's like, who was here? And like, oh wow, I recognize that. Oh, that's incredible. It's absolutely fascinating to watch him.
I think he just wants to connect with source, is what it is. Yeah, we're seeing some examples of the wonderness, but I want to connect with source. Let me stick my nose right in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever seen a dog dig a hole? He digs a little bit and sticks his nose right in the middle of the hole. And then he digs some more and then he sticks and at the end of it, his nose is just full of mud. It's so cute.
Well, yeah.
So a silkworm can detect one single molecule of pheromone. Like, I mean, it's insane.
Wow.
There are some cases of significant differences among people in what, okay, so it's like you can't trust somebody who's a wine taster or whatever to have the same or similar taste to you, because like each one of our perceptions of taste and flavor and whatever is different. So beyond humans, if we go beyond humans, then there are many more like sonar in bats and in some moths, infrared in pit vipers, ultraviolet in bees, magnetic fields detected by some birds, and just possibly humans too. And perhaps most surprising to humans, the electric sensors found in various fish species, electroreception, the detection of nearby things, particularly other fish, by the electric fields they radiate out in water. Active electrolocation with a fish emits an electric field and senses how it is changed by nearby objects. That's fascinating to me, is how fish like move in these huge, what are they?
Schools.
Shoals of fish.
Cool.
And how their physical relationships to one another are like, their proximity is like perfectly aligned. So it's absolutely beautiful. And
But then also saying that,
Alex, can you turn up your mic? I'm really battling to hear you.
but saying that, it's a case of, you know, a lot of people have developed these sensors. So people that never had these sensors before developed them. It's like, I mean, there was this this kid that went blind, and then he was able to use sonar to travel around. I mean, I think we all have a lot of these, and I think we could, if we really focused in. If I said, okay, well, you know, I'm only going to use my sense of smell today, and I'm really going to focus on everything that I smell, I could intensify or, you know, get a better understanding of what things I'm actually smelling going forward. And
I agree with that 100%.
you know,
I'm
tap into them.
Yeah, I was walking along the road and smelling the roses and the trees and everything. And I turned to everyone around me and I'm like, can you smell that? And they're like, no.
You know, as you're just talking about that, it's imagine, because I believe that's what meditation is about, is what Alex just said, if we just focus on one sense. When we meditate, we also focus on our sense of thought and our sense of perception and our sense of process. So those of you that do meditate, you're looking to do that same thing. You're looking to enhance that particular sense of being able to make connection, let's say, with the collective unconscious or the universal stream of energy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know, and
absolutely. I love
that's
that.
like the huge thing that we covered. Alex, do you want to carry on?
Connecting with the collective consciousness. I mean, re-establishing or establishing synapses. What's it called? Connections in the brain that may not have been there before, but can be established and can be created. That's incredible. I mean, let's use our brain and not the 1%, 10% that we actually use.
Yeah. You know, just that one concept there that you both brought up, it's like the collective unconscious and our ancestors and whatever, and people have passed on who were close to us and so on. That's such a real thing. But, I went from this Spanish island, but then to St. Thomas. And then we went through all of the island chains, and then I returned to St. Thomas. And that was where Shannon passed away. But as I approached the island at about exactly the same distance, about 7 miles away, it was like a dome, that I entered this dome of her consciousness. And I sensed her immediately, like this all-loving, encompassing, like she's holding me, this feeling of her presence. And then immediately from that point onwards, we communicated, and I was speaking to her, and of course she's speaking back to me in like as if we're communicating right now. And then the moment I exited that 7 mile radius, that connection, that feeling, that just almost instantly just like dissipated. And then like some months later, I'm returning and I hit that 7 mile mark and boom, I was in her dome again. Now, I'm not saying that she's limited to that, because I mean, I can communicate with her at any time, at any stage, whenever I want to. But that's her physical presence was powerful up to 7 miles out. It was like this dome of consciousness. Just to me, absolutely magical.
Well, we've known of I'll use the word vortexes, certainly around the world. That's just another example of one. Certainly geographical places for various reasons have them as well. So yeah, there's so many things that we can sense that may be considered subcategories of our five senses, but I think also they could probably stand as separate from them. And definitely that's one, is being able to, we can sense somebody's aura, right? I mean, we've been able to photograph it, I guess, with Kirlian photography, but we can also just kind of sense, we get the vibe of somebody. How more specific can you get in your terminology? Yeah, I'm sensing their vibration. And we kind of pass that off as, no, that's an actual sense. So yeah, there are many different ways that we interact. Many of them are unconscious, and we can bring them to the surface the more that we want to investigate and get deeper into what we're capable of.
Yeah. Just, wow.
One other point, just because Alex brought it up before, when she was talking about sitting under the tree and feeling the dirt, the concept of earthing has come about the past few years, but that's exactly what we're talking about, is it not? It's sensing the vibrations of the earth and the various vibrations that we have, whether it be a tree, leaves, the grass, the dirt, the water, anything. So it's all available to us.
That's such an important thing that you brought up there. It's just, I have done a lot of walks with Roan and with the family and everything. We go barefoot walking every now and then over the time that I've been here. But there was a guy running down the road and he was like barefoot. And I'm like, oh, you're earthing. He says, yay, it's amazing. Somebody knows what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Al?
on that,
Carry on.
sorry, before you carry on there, just I want to like elaborate on something that I've just been thinking about for the last few minutes. Do you guys like mention something about bottlenecking, and you know, we only allow ourselves to receive a certain amount of information, but I also think on that information we actually put filters on based on our belief system, our our culture, our upbringing, and all of that. I mean, you've got this concept of, oh, you're looking at life through these rose-colored glasses. We actually put these filters on. It's like, oh no, I cannot understand that. I cannot believe that. That's just too much information for me to fully accept or believe or want to allow myself to understand. And I think that's an incredible. What you just mentioned is an exact representation of that. It's like, what am I allowing myself to believe?
It's awesome stuff. Do you know that we've run out of time? It's like we had like a yay.
No, we haven't.
Okay.
We haven't. There's more.
There you go. I was just going to do that.
There's so much more information. Let's just share it.
Time is just a construct anyway, so get off of that.
Exactly. Stop limiting yourself.
Exactly. Perfect. So what you just said, Alex, it reminded me years ago. I read a book. It was called The Einstein Factor, actually, but in it they proposed visual streaming, and the idea is to not concentrate on any one particular thing, but just to allow, and it's similar to meditation, just to allow the images, the thought process to just go by. And when you allow that to happen, things just fall down, right? Oh, here's a thought that I'm having. Okay, had that one. Rather than I'm only going to see the thoughts that I'm supposed to see. I'm supposed to be meditating on oneness and godliness and whatever. Just allow everything to come by without attachment, and that would be basically taking off the filters. Now, of course, by doing that, you're putting on a filter called allowing, right, versus whatever else you used to be doing. But that concept of broadening your horizon without an agenda, without having to accomplish or produce results, just to allow it, is a big factor that, and I think most of us have been domesticated and trained and propagandized not to do that. It's how can you be good at doing your small little compartmentalized things? So I think this aspect of the conversation and the flow of where Help Save Our World is heading definitely speaks to that. We need to allow all that is to come in instead of being trained to put filters on everything and to put meaning and interpretations on everything. Just allow it.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
that's
just
awesome
allow
stuff. So just to round off here, next week we'll go on to your awareness of your states of consciousness enables you to focus on and become more conscious so that you can control and master your states of consciousness. So then we just go into just different states of consciousness and so on. But,
wow.
So yeah, preempting me again.
In a way,
That's
that sounded like the opposite of what I just said, and it's also creating the allowance. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
We live in an oxymoron, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah, it's some people refer to it as the duality of thought and consciousness. I think, but it's so much more than duality. It's like it's shades of gray. It's not even shades of gray. It's nuance. It's just like whatever there is, it is, and how you perceive it is up to you, depending on how unnuanced or uncategorized that you are. Open, as you're saying, open to the.
I just want to mention that just now, it was a zebra butterfly about, I want to say this, 5 or 6 inches in width, just flew past and went out. So it was blessing the conversation, is my interpretation of it.
There you go.
Come with me. Be open. Flit everywhere you want to go with your brain.
And that's it. And you need to just throw some tobacco down on the trees just to bless them and everything will be good to go.
Ah, don't mock the Native Americans and the South Americans.
Oh, you know that might be a mocking thing, but it's a blessing. It's like I've actually been like taking my little coffee grounds every morning, and I've been going out to my little plants and
Yeah.
putting a little bit on each of them, you know, and they seem to be thriving. So
Yeah.
you've got to share the
Well,
blessing.
yeah.
But
You've seen the purpose of it. Go
tobacco
ahead.
is tobacco and rooibos are two of the most nutritious plants that you can actually give to another plant. They also are sort of like natural pesticides, and they're amazing plants too, and food for others. So yeah, don't diss it, love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. So everyone, like, please, if you can, comment if you can on the videos when I post them, and share them. So we can carry on talking, but this is like an hour break. I'll do the bye everyone.
Bye.
The clap. And then
Yeah, I have to go too, guys. But, the clapper.
All
Yeah,
right,
however it
guys.
is.
Yeah.
Again,
Bye.
wonderful Sunday.
Thank
You
you.
too,
Oh,
Kurt.
well,
Thanks
hey.
for joining us.
Thanks for the
Bye.
magical meeting. Okay, bye.